welcome to episode I don't know what number. Insert episode number here of Between Two Lances. It's the head honchos. It's us. We have Parker
Yeah,
here, and and we haven't done this yet, which is weird.
this is very weird, but it's kind of cool. We always like to chat, but now it's official. It's on a podcast.
Yeah, right. Well, it's the first time. It's funny because I've talked to other people. This is the first time we've actually like chatted together on it, but there's a good reason for it because we have a book coming out, which is kind of weird to say, but we apparently wrote a book and we did it in such like manageable increments that it doesn't feel real.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, it took us a while. We had a lot going on. I had the
Yeah.
granddaughter come into the picture. You had a son come into the picture. So our timeline
Yes.
for getting the book out was, I would say, delayed a little bit, but that's okay. We have some great content in there.
Yeah, and it's kind of good that it took the way, the length that it did because I feel like the more time it took almost, the more we were growing in our business and the more we were learning and then figuring out things to add and edit based on like new things that we had experienced. So it's not like it's content that's like super old.
Right. Yeah. We didn't put it on the shelf. So it was always dynamic. So we could pull up the manuscript any day and say, oh, we're going to change this one paragraph to
Yep.
reflect something new. So, yes, you're absolutely right. We kept it up to date.
We tried at least.
We tried.
And every time I read, it, I don't know if you have the same feeling. I'll go back and be like, "Oh, we wrote that. Oh, that's actually pretty funny." Or, "Oh, we wrote that. Oh, I'm kind of embarrassed that I wrote that, but it's in the book now anyway."
Exactly. Yes. Hopefully, it'll be not only entertaining, but very substantive for those really looking to make that leap from whatever career they're in to jumping into freelancing for instructional design. So we tried to make it very practical, didn't we?
Yeah, and that goes up. So our social media director of marketing and social media, she has chained us to our desks. Well, I'm not sitting on a desk. I'm sitting in my bedroom doing this because it's at nighttime, and it's the only time I don't have kids that are talking in my house. But she gave us questions to ask, and we have to do them. So, or
Let's
she'll yell.
do it.
She'll yell at us in a very polite way, but she'll be disappointed. So the first question that she wanted us to answer is, what inspired us to write this book and why?
Yeah. Oh, wow. So I think what is really, I think, for us is just being able to help people because we know there are a lot of people wanting to make this leap. And it seems as though that we've been asked many questions through various sources, Andrea, right? I mean, we have questions come to us in LinkedIn, or we may have questions in Slack, or somebody will email us. And there's a lot of various questions. But, I think being able to write this book, I think the inspiration is just to be able to consolidate all of our experiences and come up with a set of answers or possible pathways that people can follow.
Mm-hmm.
So, we don't have to be able to constantly just answer through emails or Slack messages or whatever it might be. We have a central source to help people.
Mm-hmm. And then it's consistent information. Then also, not that we won't answer people anymore, but it's like, it's a good baseline collection of information to get somebody started. And then once they have all of that and say they go through this book, then they can have sort of like more detailed, nuanced questions, and they can kind of get deeper quicker by having all this information in one place. And really, we started kind of writing content that at least inspired this book before we even started IDLance. We were writing this kind of content because we started out actually as like an online curriculum on like a really crappy LearnDash site. Our site wasn't crappy. LearnDash was crappy. Sorry if you love LearnDash or you own LearnDash and you're listening to this. I'm sorry. Maybe we just weren't skilled enough to keep it going well. But we had a whole collection of material that answered some of these questions, and that's how we started. And then through that, we grew a community, and then through growing the community, we started doing client projects and all of that. So we've kind of been writing this book for a long time in one way or another.
Yeah,
And
we've
it
had
will, yeah,
lots of notes and messages, and we've been able to collate, filter, and be able to rewrite the material in some ways that we already had from the curriculum that we started out back in 2019, 2020. And so now is sort of brought to the forefront is something that's more clear, more concise. But we did have to throw in some humor, right, Andrea? We had to make it fun.
And kind of can't help it. We kind of can't help it.
Yeah.
I can't write anything that isn't, I just don't know how. I mean, I can for work purposes, but for something that we were going to put our name on, it just felt really weird to write something really dry and experty, like, oh, I don't know. The tone just wouldn't work for who we are.
It has to be fun to read.
Yeah, or no one's going to read it.
You know, it's great reading.
Yeah, because
my copy in my hands.
I know, me too. And also, like, I'm not an industry book person, so it's very ironic to me that I helped write something that is quote unquote like an industry book. So I couldn't let it slide that like it was going to be as boring as all the ones that I have read. So there's also that too. Okay, let's do the next one, which is you can tell that these questions are a little bit biased by someone who likes us, which is funny. Why is our book a must-have resource for an instructional designer considering going freelance? And why should they pick up our book and not the other guys? I think they can pick up as many books as they want, Megan.
Yeah, I mean, the more books you read, the better.
Yeah.
I mean, why should somebody pick our book? Well, I mean, it's a life-changing thing. Think about it. I mean, you're making a decision to go into freelancing. I wish I had this book when I started out.
Me too. And I have to be really honest and say that, like, it is written by people who actually have taken this risk and who have done it. And so far, I know Parker's been making it work for a long time, but in the grand scheme of things, I've been freelancing for a while, but going full-time freelance / business owning, I'm only a few years into that. And it is information in this book that I wish I had, that it was really hard for me to gather, like when I was on my own trying to figure all of this out. And I think that if I had something like this to be comforting to me, to be like, hey, all the feelings that you're feeling and all the things that you have to figure out, it is overwhelming, and it is normal to feel overwhelmed. Because even sometimes, like, it is a difficult thing to do and it is scary, but at the same time, I can't imagine not having done this. But I think I would have felt comfortable doing it sooner if I felt like people who were like speaking my language were compiling information to help me through it.
Yeah,
it's very empathetic. Like, it's very like
exactly the word I was trying to think of is empathetic, because that's one of our traits, our brand traits, right? Empathy, and we want to put ourselves in the shoes of a new freelancer, and we've been there. You and I have both been a new freelancer. We know the feelings and we know the emotions that come with it, and there's some moments of joy, and there are some moments of nervousness, and there's moments of, oh crap, what have I done? I mean, there are so many different emotions that you go through. It's a roller coaster ride. When we wrote the book, we wanted to include some of that empathy in there to let the readers know that, hey, we're with you, we understand, but this is how we got through it.
Yeah, and then this isn't something that's like, oh yeah, we did it for like a little bit, and then we know a little bit about it and wrote a book, but like we still live this way. Like, we are still running a business, and it's not like we're beyond
roller coaster emotions.
Exactly. That's what I want to say, is like, it's not like we have the answer to be like, buy a yacht in 10 days by following this method or whatever. Like, it's not a life for everybody, but if it is the life for you, it feels right, even though it's so scary.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, it's not everybody will be comfortable going freelance. Although I do think, and this is probably a topic for another book, and maybe a topic for the conference that we're going to be speaking at. Like, I do believe that anybody can be side gigging if they're, if their company allows it and it's not putting something under it. Like, that kind of freelancing, I think anybody can be doing. But like going full time doing it, it's for those people who are like, oh, I've been here 2 years at a job and I just can't stand it anymore, no matter what the job is. Like, for some reason, I was like that. I had like a couple of, quote, like, I keep saying quote unquote, I had a couple of like jobs at like dream companies, and I still, like, 2 years in, was like, oh my God, I can't do this anymore. And I didn't know what was wrong with me. And I think it's just my brain. My brain needs to be doing different stuff and owning my own stuff and working for myself and for like a larger vision that like I'm in charge of.
Right, right. I mean, basically, I like the freelance world because, I get to live my dream, you get to live your dream, and we're not living somebody else's dream, aka corporate or school.
Yeah.
So, for those that are looking for a change in their life and flexibility with their day-to-day schedule or time they need with their family or whatever, they have a lot more freedom in the world of freelance versus a typical 9 to 5 type of job.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the answer to this next question is going to be quick. Does this mean you guys are gurus now, and why should we listen to you? No, I don't. We don't believe in gurus, really. And I think we kind of already answered like why we are a credible source for this kind of thing is because we're still living it now. Like, we are giving information that we actually have used to sort of build our own freelance careers. And there's really nothing more. It's as practical as it can possibly be.
Yeah. Gurus, experts are just overinflated terms in my eyes. I mean, I don't think I could ever be an expert because
Me either.
I find myself, the more I know, the less I really know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but same thing with a guru. I kind of equate guru and expert in the same term, I guess. But
Yeah.
I don't know that I would call ourselves gurus, but I would say that we are practitioners, right? Because we are living not only as the head honchos of IDLance, but we are also freelancers. We actually work on things. So yes, we are managing projects for many other freelancers, and we like to connect top tier talent with the projects that we bring into the company. But at the same time, you and I, what's cool about it is that we're still working as freelancers.
Yep.
And we, keep ourselves grounded, we keep ourselves humble, and we're always learning new things, kind of stay on top of what's happening in the educational technology field and how we can integrate that into our work.
Yeah, and it's amazing. It's amazing and terrifying how easy it is to be like, I don't know if distanced is the word, or like feel out of date, or feel like, oh gosh, I don't know what's going on anymore, when like you totally, like, if I were to totally stop actually freelancing and working on projects, I feel like I would be, what is that word? Not outdated, but like oh, I can't think of the word. Do you know
I
what I'm
don't
talking
know.
about?
You would well, I don't know what you call yourself.
No,
But outdated is probably a good word,
I'm gonna think of the word probably in like 10 questions from now. Hopefully we have 10 more questions. But anyway, like, yeah, we're actually like doing it. And it kind of goes into this next question, which is like, what is the biggest challenge that we each have personally faced when we decided to go freelancing? Honestly, for me, the idea of like security, even though I know that having multiple projects is probably a lot more secure, especially now, than like relying on one job for income that you can get laid off from, or say, everything's great and then your manager changes and something crazy happens at your job and you just got to deal with it or work to find a new one from scratch. Like that, going from, okay, well, at least I know I'm getting this paycheck every 2 weeks. And at the time, I was like a single mom. And then going full time freelance was terrifying. I'm like, what am I going to do for health insurance? What am I going to do for like consistent income? Yet at the same time, I knew that my earning potential and what I was already earning from side gigging was rivaling what I made in my salary. It's still that was scary for me. Like that was really, really scary. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, I think it
and
would be scary for
yeah.
anybody not knowing when your next paycheck is. I know for me, when I left corporate and went into freelancing, I didn't actually start out looking for instructional design gigs. I was hoping to find more of organizational learning, change management kind of opportunities, more like a consultant that you might hire for a think
Mhm.
tank. I wasn't really looking at instructional design. However, if I had to go back in time, start over, I would definitely go for instructional design because the opportunities were plentiful, whereas the other kind of stuff that was not plentiful out there, the market
Yeah.
was different. It's not to say I couldn't do it, it's just it would have taken a lot more time. And that fear of not knowing how much you're going to get and when you're going to get that pay, that was always there. But I did wish, going back, I wish I had that book that would say, hey, this is what you do to get to this level of income. And these are the kinds of clients that you can find right away.
Mm-hmm.
If I had that right in my hands, I'd
Yep.
be further along.
Oh yeah. I mean, even just knowing like, hey, here are some ways you can connect with people. Here are some really important things to consider when you're charging clients and like how much what your rate can be and business entity stuff. Like even though we're not, business consultants or tax consultants, just having that kind of normal people information from real people who have lived it versus like when I was starting freelancing, I like was scouring the internet and all these blogs and trying to connect with people on LinkedIn. And I felt like I had to like kiss a lot of butts just to like connect with people, but maybe not like, even though I wanted to learn about them, I felt like they were always suspicious of like connecting with me, which was weird. And it just was not a good vibe. And then going into all the industry blogs, it's like, how do you decide who to trust? And how do you decide like who's got up to date information and where to start and all that? Especially like for me, I had no corporate instructional design experience. And was working in a college or in a university that I was doing, instructional technology work, but I really felt like it was not applicable to anywhere else. I was like, what I'm doing here is so weird that I can't imagine that it's applicable to anywhere else. And if I had read this book, I probably would be like, oh, you know what? Like, it's giving me the confidence that, like, I'll just be able to figure it out if I find something. And I won't be too stressed because I'll know that there's a community out there. And here's how I can deal with when I'm too busy. And here's how I can get my first gigs through other freelancers and all that. It would have been comforting and feeling like I had like a roadmap.
Yes, having a roadmap is so important. And what I like about our book is that we've been able to spell it out step by step, month by month, which is
And why
probably the
7 months?
next question.
Yeah, why 7 months?
Why 7 months? Yeah, so when we put a timeline together, I guess there's no right answer for how long it takes. It will take however long any individual wants to take to get ready. We put it together as 7 months based on what we felt was necessary to do and the amount of time we thought that it would take to accomplish the work. And yeah, you can do it faster than 7 months. You can take more time than 7 months. But it just felt like if you're going to work a full-time job, you got save a little bit of time after work or on the weekend to help focus on your new business. And it just seemed to come to a point where, well, it looks like a 7-month project.
Yep. And it's like you don't want it to be sometimes if you're in a place to really think about doing it seriously and start side gigging and all that stuff, it seems like if you really hit the ground running like on day one and keep it going and keep actually doing the things there, you're going to, by 7 months, you're going to want to be launching your career because you're going to have all this stuff going. If you kind of, I feel like, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong length of time, but it shouldn't have been a full. I feel like when you get something to be like a full year, unless you're really really like cautious and taking it slow and like you've got a plan, like no one would want to read a book that's like, oh, 18 months until you can launch your freelance career. Like you can take 18 months, but also 7 sounded catchier. But we really did break it down to like doable steps, and it just happened to be that long.
And the other thing too, I want to bring up is that some people, when they're reading this book for the first time, they've already finished the first 2 or 3 months worth of work.
Mm-hmm.
So they just need a few more before they finish it. So it depends on what stage you're at. And you might be able to get your business up and running much sooner than the 7-month plan. But then again, if you need more than 7 months because you've got a lot going on in your work, your career, your family, whatnot, and then you just take the extra time.
Yep. And 7 months or more is enough time to start side gigging while you're working your salary job, and it's enough time to start saving money and looking at your finances and all that kind of stuff. It feels less overwhelming because you're like, oh wow, I have over half a year, to like figure all this out. It's like a mental game, right? you're like bargaining with yourself of like, oh yeah. I remember it took me a few false starts. I almost quit my job about 5 times. I told my boss a couple of times, hey, I gotta quit. I've got this. I'm fully going freelance. I got this big project starting, and then like a couple months later, I think one project fell through and other things weren't happening. I was like, oh, never mind, I'm not quitting yet. And then she was like, okay, I guess just let me know when you're ready. I had a cool boss at that time, but it was funny. There was some false starts there, which is fine. It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. And we also have false starts in contracts, right? In projects.
Yep.
And you think we're going to land it, and then at the 11th hour, the contract is canceled or postponed. So it even happens in the freelance world. But one of the things that I like about our book is that we talk about how we want to try to build a portfolio or build diversity. So you don't want to just stick with just one contract. You're trying to get 3, 4, 5 contracts at the same time.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, next one. What's your favorite chapter of the book and why?
Oh, it is definitely, for me, my favorite chapter, hands down, is visualizing your income and expenses.
Ooh, you would love that one.
I think it's so important because I think people, a lot of people just can't visualize what it is to make money in freelancing. They can visualize a full-time job because every 2 weeks they get a paycheck. It's usually about the same amount. And every year they may get a merit increase of 2, 3%, maybe 5%, lucky. And, everything's good. You get a steady paycheck. But the moment you're in the world of freelancing, it's not that. You will have ups and downs. You will have heavy periods of income. You will have dry periods. It's up and down. And so what I like about this chapter is it helps you visualize an annual income if you make a certain rate per hour. Also helps you visualize your current expenses or what you can do to reduce those expenses. We all have a little extra fluff in our expenses, right? But we don't really stop to say, hey, let's try to take out 20, 30% of this and try to get our expenses down. Because in the world of freelancing, you really got to work on getting your income up and you get your expenses down. That's how you survive.
Yeah, I need to do more of the expenses down.
Oh, don't we all? I mean, I'm still working on it myself.
We're trying to do the You Need a Budget program, and I'm like, I don't even have expensive tastes. Like, how are we spending this much every single month? And then I remember diapers and baby toys and 6-year-old toys and other crafts and a sweatshirt here, a t-shirt there for your kids. I'm like, we're almost never spending money on ourselves. But then I'm like, you know what? They appreciate most of it. So, but it's so hard. Anyway, my favorite chapter is probably just the first one. I mean, I like all of them, but I like how just immediately goofy it is because there's just no other way it could start. It's just like immediately weird. And I think that when people open it, they're going to be like, okay, this isn't like a lot of other, how to do this with your life books. It's immediately just like, okay, this is a little bizarre. I wonder what they have to say. At least that's what I'm hoping happens. Because
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
we didn't even write it that way on purpose. It just kind of came out that way.
it did. Yeah, yeah. I still go back to the book and read and I'm thinking, oh, we actually wrote this. Okay, yeah. Oh, it feels like I'm seeing something new every time I open up the page. But oh,
Oh,
okay, yeah,
yeah.
we did write that.
Yep, exactly. What's the biggest way that freelancing has changed your life, either professionally, personally, or both? That's a
Oh
good
my
one.
gosh, just being able to live a free life. I mean, I call it free because I feel like I have more freedom in my day-to-day schedule. I feel
Hmm.
like I have more flexibility to meet the needs of my family. Yeah, I'm married, and I have 4 kids. So my wife and I have 2 boys, 2 girls, and we even have a granddaughter. And so you can imagine the activity that we have going on in the house, and just being able to attend to school or appointments or taking kids to their friend's house or having people over. I mean, there's a lot going on. And if I was back in the corporate days, I would not have the flexibility or the freedom to be able to be part of my family's life uh, as much as I am able to today. So it's been a huge, huge impact on my life, just be able to do freelance.
Yeah, I would say I feel that's, my exact same life-changing reason too. And also the fact that we can live, like I know that like you own your house and you guys have been there for a while, but like I've had to move for various reasons, and the fact that I can just like move wherever and not have to like tell a company, hey, I'm moving here, or hey, here, I'm going here, and have them like be worried about it or care for any reason. Because believe it or not, I worked at a company that like you had to inform them like 3 months in advance if you were going to be moving, and I'm like, what is, and even though I was remote, I was like, what is that, how is that your business? But anyway,
Does it
yeah,
feel like a chain ball, a ball on a chain?
yeah, that feeling of, so even when you have like long-term contracts where you are kind of like a part of a team for a while, it's still a different feeling than being like salaried. And I'll like a couple of months ago, like not a couple months ago, like a while ago, it was not a couple months ago. I have no sense of time since having a baby. um I have been offered like regular jobs, right? That even places that I've contracted with. And I love the team. Like I would, in another life, I would be like, yes, absolutely. Like I would love to work with you. And I love having long-term engagements with this group. But I know that if I were to become salaried, even if everything were the same, my mentality would change. And I think inevitably, expectations and like, oh, you have to travel for this and go there for that, that my life just isn't set up for that right now. And I don't know if it ever will be because of having small kids and just how I've built my life. And just the fact that um I can make whatever decisions I'm going to make and not have to report to somebody else about them, like, or even just, or time,
Yes.
even time off. It's like if I want to take time off, like yes, I have to let contracts know, but it's not like I have a set amount of time. If I can figure out how to make it work, I make it work. And I would rather work a little bit every day on a vacation for like an hour to like answer emails every day than like be stressed and in like every
Yeah.
single day for like regular salaried life. Because even when I was salaried
Right.
taking vacation time, I never stopped working because it just never worked like that. I still was asked stuff, and now it's like I can draw the line if I want to, or I can not draw the line if I want to, and it's all up to me and how I
Yeah,
want to
and,
handle
and
that.
the other thing too is when you're working full time, you have a boss to report to, and you may be very lucky to work for a wonderful, wonderful super boss or manager, right?
Yeah.
But like any other company, organization change, department
Yep.
change, new bosses come in, and all of a sudden now you're working for somebody that you really don't like very much, who doesn't treat employees very well. That's a challenge. That creates a
Mm-hmm.
whole level of stress. Whereas the stress that we feel as freelancers is different, but you don't have that micromanager looking over you, or you don't have the stress of trying to
Yep.
get something done to please the boss. So it's a different world.
Yeah, and you made me realize that the only reason I've ever left jobs that I've left, I mean, of course, it's just like having that sort of spirit of like kind of knowing that working at a place long term probably isn't exactly for me, but is because a manager changed. Every time I changed jobs, it's because there was a manager change of some kind. And every time I did, it was like the manager that changed just got like more bizarre and more bizarre. It'd be like, wow, I thought I had seen everything at my previous job, and now I'm at this new one, and they changed the manager, and wilder things have happened than I never thought would happen. And I have to give an example because I feel like people who experience this kind of stuff in the corporate or higher ed world need to not feel alone. I had a manager once, and this is really what drove me out of the job, having this manager. And I had something that was due, and it was just like nominating, hey, team, can you nominate someone for this like department award by 5 p.m. Friday, right? I did at like 3 p.m. And I sent her the email and was like, hey, I did this thing that you asked me to in time. Well, I got an email on a Sunday night saying, well, this was due Friday. So thanks, but no thanks. And I was like, but I sent it on Friday. And she said, well, I'm reading this email on a Sunday, so it's late.
Yeah, it's
She didn't,
unbelievable. It's
yeah,
people can't behave, and and probably the manager is also under a different kind of stress that we're not aware of,
yeah,
and it just gets flowed down to the employees. But yeah, I definitely like that in the world of freelancing, we can set our schedule, we work for ourselves. What I like is being able to do some of my work at night. For me, it's a little bit quieter at night. Yeah, sometimes
yep,
it's so busy during the day, I just not able to pull my full attention into freelance work during that time. But that's the beauty of our world is that we can set our own schedule.
yep. I do a lot of night work. All of my like actual task work is usually at night.
Yeah,
And then during the day, then you have sort of like free time to see kids and
right.
pick them up from school and do house stuff and go do errands, maybe even get lunch sometimes.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep.
Yep. All right. What's the biggest mistake a new freelancer can make?
Oh, yeah. I think one of them is turning down projects. Don't
Mm,
say no.
yeah.
I think some people, think they can't do the job, right? And they'll say, "No, I'm not a storyline developer. Okay, I can do design work, but I don't do storyline." But they
Hmm.
just turn down that opportunity. So I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is they say, "Well, uh, not the right fit for this. I can write a storyboard, but I won't be able to develop this as storyline. I don't have a license for this copy." That's the big mistake. No, you buy the license, you get that, and you learn it as quick as you can, get the gig. And if you have to have somebody help you, you hire a subcontractor to help
Hmm.
you with that portion. You can team up with people. So that's one of the biggest mistakes I see. People don't have that yes first mindset. And you and I, we often preach that in our cohort session.
Yep.
Is we talk about client relations, we say yes. We say yes first. And then we
Yep.
figure out how to make that work later.
Yep. And I think that's exactly what my answer would be too, is just not talking themselves out of stuff, talking
Right.
themselves out of meeting that person or putting their resume or their portfolio in for something, or talking themselves out of even sharing their portfolio with anyone because they don't think it's good enough. just, or even just talking themselves out of starting a portfolio because they don't know X, Y, and Z about a program or something. Like that's
Yeah,
really it. Like that's the biggest mistake you can make. You really just have to go for it.
just go for it and get help to help compensate for the things that you need help with.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't do that, you lose an opportunity. And not only that, you lose the word of mouth
Yeah.
because if
Yep.
just imagine if they liked you, right? At that gig, they can spread the word, and you've now get a new contract from some other client. So it's not just that one client that you lose; you could be losing multiple.
Yep. No, it's true. Because like once you shut that one door, you're shutting the door to like a trillion other things,
Exactly.
if you think about it.
Yeah.
All right. So next one, if you could pick any co-author, alive or dead, to write our next book with, who would you choose and why?
How do
Ooh.
I get Stephen King into our? I mean,
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
We
Horror.
recorded the Blair Witch Project video, so he
That's
can maybe
true.
that
You
could
did a
be.
great job with that, by the way.
Thank you, thank you.
Everybody has to see Andrea do that for Blair's project.
That was just for an excuse for you to get Stephen King somehow involved with this.
Yeah, I mean, I like Stephen King. I just don't know how I could have him write stuff for ID freelancing, but maybe there is a way. You never know,
There,
right?
everything's connected in some way.
Yeah.
What if we wrote, what if part of like the intro, you know how sometimes the intros of chapters of like novels might have like a couple of pages in italics that are like telling a different story or from a different perspective, and then the real chapter starts. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
There'll be like a little intro of like, a
Yeah.
dialogue or like a monologue, and then like the rest of the chapter starts. What if our next book is like like it tells like almost like a horror story in little bits in the beginning of every chapter, and then anyway, what's my answer? Oh gosh, I don't know. Um, it's real tricky because I don't care if it's relevant, but it's really hard to choose. I saw a video today with Werner Herzog. Do you know who Werner Herzog is, Parker?
No, I don't.
Oh boy. He's this German filmmaker who has also written books and he's done a bunch of stuff. And he's just a wild person. Like he's not wild and like a wild and crazy guy, but like you'll have to Google him. But if he helped us write our book, I think that the dry humor and the absurdity of life would come out really well, and he would be able to help us
I
make
think
some
we'd have a
like
better shot at this than Stephen King would.
yeah,
Although I know maybe Stephen King could take the scary moments of our freelance world, right? I mean,
yeah.
we could get scared as a freelancer.
Oh yeah, or I was even thinking of like getting scared like working in corporate and like all the stuff that happens in like a corporate horror story
Yes, yes, that
somehow.
definitely will happen. Yeah, that
Yeah.
we have Stephen King, paint a picture of what it's like being in corporate.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, I'm really excited for you to learn who Werner Herzog is. Just know when you Google him and you watch any videos with him, I met him once and I was so embarrassed by how dumb I came across when I met him. It was on the street in New York City after some event that he spoke at, and I was in this little group and we were just talking. He was very nice. He wasn't in a rush, and I just said dumb stuff about something I was working on, and he was like, "Oh, okay, that's nice." And I was so embarrassed that I actually ran away. As a grown adult, I just ran full speed the opposite direction. And he was probably like, "What the heck was that?" Anyway, um, okay, if our book was turned into a movie, who would you want to play you and why?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I can't really pick out an actor for me, but I can say this: my daughter Elle has often told me that the actor Tim Allen, he was
Oh, yeah, I
Santa
know Tim
Claus,
Allen.
right, in the movie Santa
Hmm.
Claus, and Elle was always tell me, "Hey, Tim Allen, he could play you, Dad. He just has that same kind of a demeanor about him."
That's a
And
compliment.
that's a compliment, I guess. Yeah. So if I had to pick somebody, I would go with my daughter's request, go with Tim Allen. So I don't know. Maybe he'd be
Yeah,
a good Parker Grant. Who knows?
I think he would. That makes a lot of sense. I really have no idea who would play me. My first instinct is to say Jack Black. Can Jack Black play me somehow? But probably not. There's some Hallmark movie actress that I've pigeonholed my husband into admitting that he likes. And I've noticed that she and I both have like this weird way of saying certain words and like S and like pronouncing certain words with S in them. And she seems like she's a good actress and she's actually kind of funny. So I'm allowing him to like her. So maybe that one. I think her name's like Lacey Chabert or something. I think she was in Mean Girls and she's in the Hallmark movies. So I'm going to pick her.
Oh, there you go. All right. So we have our actors. And when is the movie starting? We got
Right?
that
Well,
going.
maybe Stephen King can write the movie instead of the book. There we
Ah,
go.
there we go. Yeah.
Um, okay, and here's our last question. If you could only give one tip to someone thinking about becoming a freelance ID, what would it be? Hmm. Mine would be
So
just y YOLO it.
yeah, I was
YOLO
thinking
it.
YOLO myself is you only live once, right? And if you're ever on the fence, or you come to the fork in the road, as Yogi Berra would say, if you come to the fork in the road, take it.
Yep.
That's
Take
what
the
it is.
calculated risk.
Just
Make sure
take it.
it's a calculated risk, right? And
Yeah,
just,
yeah.
yeah.
And think through, of course, how your finances are going to be and think through, where you're going to be, geographically, where you're going to live, um, how many years left do you have in your career, and what do you want to do when you retire, and what kind of expenses or debts that you're currently facing. Do you have to take care of a few things first before you jump into freelancing, or are you all set? Have you saved up enough money that will get you by for 6 to 12 months? It's a lot of things you have to uh, think through, and we cover some of those things in the book. So, but yeah, I think if you have a dream, I think the biggest regret is not following it. So imagine if you put yourself into a time capsule and you go to the future and you're 85 years old, looking back at your life. Will you have or will you regret not having made the leap to freelancing? So if you imagine yourself as elderly person looking back, um, and if you are you satisfied? That's what you
Mm-hmm.
have to ask yourself. Are you satisfied? Did you take the risk that you wanted to take? And that's really how I would have to look at it. Um,
Yep.
if I had not jumped into freelancing, I know I would have regretted it. I mean, I've always had the urge to do stuff on my own, and I'm just so grateful that I took the chance.
See, I didn't think I had that urge. I didn't realize that I had that urge at all until I realized since I was maybe 20 something, 21, I have always had multiple jobs. And people would be like, "How do you have multiple jobs? How are you doing that?" I'm like, "I don't know. My old job's still hiring me to do stuff, and my new like I did not realize I was freelancing this entire time
Right.
until I officially realized I was doing it in instructional design."
Yeah.
And it's really, I am grateful to those people who gave me a chance to kind of like make that happen because it did change my life being able to like side gig. And it took those years of side gigging to realize, oh, wow, like this makes a lot of sense for me. What if my whole life was like a bunch of gigs? And I really would not have been able to have like the relationship that I have with my kids
Right.
if I wasn't doing that. Honestly, like that's one thing to think about when you're talking about like what would you look back and regret and whatever. And I think if I was in an office from 9 to 5 every day, even in like the most cushy office ever, especially while my kids were like before school age, I think I would have regretted that. Or even being able to like have a life doing other things. Now, right now, admittedly, I don't leave my house all that much because we're pretty busy at IDLance and then I have little kids that take naps and stuff. But I know that it's all for a reason and that like the payoff of the time that I do get to take off, or even just, that feeling, Parker, when like imagine you just had a bunch of projects and you have a bunch going on, but you just handed in some, and one of the projects is in a lull, not because it's canceled, but just because it's like they're reviewing your stuff. And you
Yeah.
think, what do I have to do? And there's nobody you have to report to, and there's nothing you
Yes.
have to do that
Yes.
day.
That's
Isn't
a
it the
great feeling.
best?
It really is a good feeling. And you can think about some of the things that you can do around the house or just some, places you want to go to just for a couple of days, just because, you
Yep.
have a little bit of downtime to do that. I
Hmm.
really do like that. It's just nice to have that flexibility.
Yep, definitely. Well, those are all our questions, and I think like my throat
Yeah,
hurts. My
covered a
throat
lot of
hurts.
ground. This is awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
Well, this is something we'll have to do again, Andrea. They're having
I
the
think so.
two Lances episode. We don't get to do
Hmm.
this, so we have to thank
Yep,
you for pushing us to get this done.
I know. Yes, thank you, Meg. But yeah, yep. So this is what we have. Our book will be out at some point soon. It's already on pre-sale.
Yes. Go
Yeah.
to Amazon and look up Ditch Your Cubicle, Not Your Life
Hmm.
under Parker Grant, Andrea Dottling, and you'll find that book is ready for pre-order. You can also go to Barnes and Nobles.
Which is so exciting.
Yes, it's really kind of cool. And we have the Kindle edition out.
Yep.
And
Eh.
soon we will have an audiobook coming out. How cool is
Oh,
that?
that's going to be really good. Have you, I mean, you've heard some of the samples. Yeah, we have
Yes,
someone doing it who's actually in our Slack community, and he's doing different voices for all the little
I
characters and
love it.
whatnot. I'm so excited.
Great talent.
Yep. All right. Well,
Oh,
you guys will hear from us soon, I'm sure. Maybe we'll record another one of these, but thanks for listening.
yes. Thanks for joining us.
Yay.
And now check out an audio sample from our book, Ditch Your Cubicle, Not Your Life. Become a freelance instructional designer in 7 months.
7 months before you ditch your cubicle. As the Beatles said, I get by with a little help from my friends. Now, they also said to do some other more nefarious things with a little help from their friends, but that's for another book. Also, wow, we did not see quoting the Beatles in our very first chapter since we don't even really like them that much. Except George, he seemed all right. But life is full of surprises, isn't it? Disclaimer, please don't let any disagreement re the Beatles deter you from perusing the rest of this book. Anyway, a little help from your friends is what step number 1 is all about. Join your peeps. Congratulations, you've made the decision to start your freelance journey. To some, this may seem like a scary or isolating experience. To others, it may feel like a long time coming. Either way, it's mega exciting. As exciting as the time you figured out you could take the silverware compartment out of your dishwasher and keep it in your sink to collect cutlery between washes. Basically, pretty life-changing. Whether you're just starting out or making a career pivot, it's important to know that you aren't alone. Joining a global ID community is a terrific way to feel grounded and find support in your journey or quest. Step number 1. Why should I start by joining a global ID community? Joining a global ID community can help alleviate some of your fears of the unknown in going full Lance mode. So, what exactly is a global ID community? A global ID community is pretty much just like it sounds. It's made up of a group of people, for example, instructional designers, instructional developers, teachers, project managers, video creators, friendly interweb garden gnomes, that are currently freelancing as a side gig or, like you, working on a full Lance ID career. Because it is a global community, meetings are usually held in a digital/virtual space. No, not one of those metaverse Second Life-looking pixelated office spaces decorated with soul-sucking NFTs, just like text, video, and voice chat and stuff. These communities provide an opportunity to collaborate and connect with other like-minded individuals going through similar work and sometimes life things. Anyone else have a partner who puts ketchup on their pizza? Anyone? Some ID communities provide their members with the ability to find or share open gigs. Now that you have a basic understanding of what a global ID community looks like, let's take a deeper dive into a specific community, IDLance. Ooh, we know that one! IDLance is a global ID community we started in 2020. IDLance's mission is all about supporting freelance instructional designers and those who need them in all kinds of ways. We cultivate and mentor a community of freelancing fiends who are focused on the instructional design journey. And it just so happens that we tap into that community to staff and run ID projects for organizations big and small. As of the published date of this book, we've worked with the Fortune 50 companies, restaurant and hospitality industries, financial literacy nonprofits, major internet communication platforms, clinical social outreach programs, higher ed, major ad agencies, the food industry. This is the industry that Parker loves. Hey, who doesn't love Kellogg cereals? And more. Slack serves as the virtual meeting space for the IDLance community. It's an online messaging service that enables users to connect their phone or computer to communicate as a group and one-to-one. The IDLance community has a number of channels that enable users to talk about all things that are important to growing a healthy and happy life as an ID freelancer.